TradersPost for September 26, 2025. I'm one of your traders, Tom Hartman, alongside Mike Negative RR Christensen,
The
co-founder
name
and
has changed. All right, got it. I've earned it now.
co-founder and CSO of TradersPost. Up to 4 days a week at Price Action Live, we trade in front of you using the advanced trade execution engine known as TradersPost, the epic software that upgrades your trading. Whether trading stocks, futures, options, or crypto, TradersPost has got you covered. And today, we're trading prop firm accounts. Mike, on the heels of, it looks like one of the reasons we went down yesterday, equities went down yesterday, is that the GDP number was too good. It came in at 3.8% GDP. And if the economy is doing well, why does the Fed need to cut? And so the market was sort of like pricing out rate cuts in the future. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Interesting. So let's take a look at the October 29th. We've still got an 85.5% chance of another 25 basis point rate cut. And then December 10th is now 63% for an additional 25 basis point cut. So that means that if we look at the probabilities tab, or excuse me, the historical, it's probably a little bit easier to look at. We go to October 29th, we can see here that the 375, it's kind of hard to read this chart for those that can't see me scrolling over this area here, but essentially the remain at 400 to 425 increased in probability slightly, and the 375 to 400 or additional 25 basis point cut came down in probability. So that's interesting. The market's basically pricing in some potential that there's a chance of a pause. If we go to the December meeting, you can see here that the additional 25 basis point cut in December was raised slightly from, 19% to 35%. So that would mean that there's now a little bit larger of a potential of pausing in October, but then one more 25 bip cut in December.
That's right. Markets don't like that. Markets want that cowbell. They want that rate cut, which I'm never really sure. Well, actually, that's not true. Now, I've been doing more looking into it to remind myself why is it that these rate cuts can, or why the market so wants to move on the bad news, and that's because liquidity is no longer optional for equity markets. It's part of the structure, and if that liquidity flow pulls back, well, you can get some gap down days.
Agreed there. And I think part of it too is uncertainty was holding a lot of that liquidity back for about a month now until we really knew where the Fed's direction was going to be. Cost of capital is obviously baked into a lot of the earnings forecasts for companies across the board on equities. And if we know that it's going to be 25 basis points cheaper or 50 basis points cheaper, it's a little bit easier to update those models and anticipate how debt is going to play a role in the earnings for many of these companies.
Welcome, Ventura. Nice to have you here again, as always.
So we are kind of in a holding pattern at the moment. There's still some potential that we'll get... I always say his name backwards, his handle, Futures Farming, on the show today. Just talked to him about 15 minutes ago. Said as long as it'll work this morning, I'll join. Otherwise, we'll do something next week. But we'll let you know if he's able to join the channel. In the meantime, we're going to move forward with live trading as usual. We'll make a big announcement on Twitter, and he can make an announcement on his handle if he's able to join this morning. He usually waits the first 15 minutes before making a trade. Sometimes we wait a few, so we're a little more trigger happy than he is. So we'll see if we can put a trade on before he even joins this morning.
Good morning to you, Ellie. Thank you for joining us. All right. Well, as far as the bias is concerned, the 2-hour chart is suggesting that we bounced off the oversold level yesterday, and so that was like a textbook bounce off of the daily unmitigated VWAP level. That's right over here, this blue line, which was at 24,454, which is pretty interesting. Well, I think your S1 was there too, right?
Yeah, heading back to my 2-hour chart, which is my main control area for support and resistance. I actually had S1 down closer to 24,200. Let me move this out of the way.
Right.
It's a little more visible.
That's true. 200.
But R1 definitely looks confirmed up here at 24/7. The weekly VWAP is actually a much more reliable indicator here than the support and resistance line. You can see here from the overnight session, it just barely wicked off the weekly VWAP, which is the purple line on this chart.
So my rule is barely wick doesn't count.
It's got to pierce it. Okay.
Yeah, it's got to pierce it.
I've seen it bounce off of it above it. It happens about 20% of the time. But I would agree with you because of the consistency of piercing the indicator. I would agree with you. So it's possible. You know me, I hate being between an S1 and an R1. There's a chance that we could go up and retest the 24/7 level, and there's a chance that we could head down and see if we can find buyers at 24,200. I'm game either way. We'll use the session view app as our source of truth this morning.
That's right. Also, it's that thing you mentioned every once in a while where the calculations of volume or VWAP on people's charts are different depending on the software that you're using. And so on someone else's chart, it looks like it pierced. On ours, it looks like it doesn't. So that's why the price, for me, that's why I tell myself the price needs to really clearly cross it so that on everyone's chart it's cleared. And now psychologically,
okay. I see your thinking there. I think that's particularly true on thinly traded stocks, some of the smaller ETFs as well. I would think for something as liquid as NASDAQ futures, and the fact that most platforms get the same pricing data straight from the CME, it should be roughly the same. However, to your point, I'm hearing that people who use like Project X and they see their pricing data from the chart on Project X, where not Top Step, but like Project X has their own pricing data from the CME. It doesn't seem to match the same New York session data from TradingView. So I'm not exactly sure why there's a disparity there, but I've talked to a few other prop firm traders that are seeing slightly different VWAP numbers, and they don't understand why. It should be the same, but it doesn't appear to be.
I thought it had to do with the number of candles on the chart, that it's actually calculating the VWAP directly, not from the entire data set, but just from the candles that are there. And so,
well, that's how VWAP is calculated anyway. VWAP is calculated on the HLC. If we pull open the VWAP indicator, even on TradingView here, and we open the Pine script, we can see. How much time do we have? 1 minute? Okay, I don't want to launch lesson, but if I look at VWAP on the New York session on the 4-hour chart, it's going to be slightly different than the 1 minute chart, right? Because it uses HLC 3 as one of its inputs, or the close, depending on what your settings are.
Right. Good morning, Jarmo. Thank you very much for joining. Market's going to open here in 7 seconds. Remember the rule, if you guys are in a trade, you have to legally tell us.
You're contractually obligated to tell us what your trade is.
Please.
This looks like a nice rejection off of R1. I'm thinking we might be pretty bearish from the open here. We'll keep an eye on it, though. All right, I don't want to forget to enable my strategies. I love the new quick enable feature that we've just launched. Makes it a lot easier. We'll keep an eye on gold as well, which also seems to be opening a little in the red.
Yeah, the bullishness of the dollar. So annoying. I thought we were breaking below and we're going to have good times roll, but nope. Dollar up, equities down.
It's interesting, too, that the VIX pulled back to 16 from a little over 17 yesterday. So it's still this kind of like low vol, but still downtrending environment. No panic yet, but we're still trending down. Gold slightly up, nearly 3,800 again. Oil right in the middle.
Right. And then we're in a sell-off here in NQ. Are you waiting before you get in for that?
Yeah, I usually wait the first few minutes here. I don't want to get in right away. Interesting. Right. Okay, so Bitcoin's back to that major support level.
Is that a 105? Let me see. No, 109.
The 108. Yeah, 108 zone. It's a little wide. It's between 107 and 109.
Well, until Bitcoin gets to 104, I'm not really interested anymore.
Yeah, that right there is why I wait a few minutes. Look at that bounce. Take a look at the 15-minute chart here. At least from the overnight session, I see a higher, we see a high from the open, a little bit higher of a higher high, higher low, and another higher low that just printed from the open. So I'm curious if we're gonna retrace and test that weekly VWAP and actually cross it, like you mentioned, Tom.
That's right. Got to get it cleared. I will say charts are OCD. Markets are OCD.
Can't do it. I got to go knock on the door 3 times.
Well, you ever see the price? You're like, okay, it nearly wicked it, and then later on it comes all the way back. Now it wicks it and gives it the ghost, and people go, it's a double top. No. It's OCD. It didn't actually clear the price yet. Look at that. So the weekly VWAP would be 24,757, 755.
I have 773, 764. This is my point about VWAP being slightly different on different time frames because of the way it's calculated, but between 760 and 770.
Okay. And then short all the market.
We'll just turn around and short against this whole thing. These candles are way too big for me to want to get involved. ATR on that last candle was 46, so I need to wait a sec. My scalping strategy has a 20-point stop loss on it, and I would more than likely just get stopped out right away.
Several people just lost their funded prop firm accounts on that candle. That's what that is.
Got to be careful. Sizing and risk control is important. I'm a huge fan of ATR for measuring that kind of thing. You know, just measuring the size of the candles is what I found myself doing instinctively for a long time, just like measuring ranges like this. Mm-hmm. And ATR is an incredibly useful tool for kind of measuring the trend of volatility. Wow, even gold's pulling back at the moment. I would assume that would be the market responding to it being pretty bullish on NQ right now.
Right. Well, both the Asian session and the London session was bullish overall for the trend. So we've sometimes been seeing this complete reversal of what happens in the overnight during the US session, but sure, it's been somewhat sideways all the way through there, if you really consider it.
So I do want to pay attention to the price action that occurred yesterday, though. Once we found this bounce at 24.4, which I still haven't figured out why that's a support level. Other than this previous candle here, this guy right here on September 17th, this zone seems to be important to buyers, which is slightly above where I had S1. But we've now printed it twice. So I think actually it makes more sense for me to move my S1, even though my indicator doesn't have that as a level, because this is clearly an important zone for buyers. And if this is the zone where we find buyers will show up and we gain some momentum past R1 here, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of this being a continuation to the upside from here. But I think this is a critical zone, this area right here, that we need to test and confirm is either confirmation to the downside or confirmation to the upside.
So you're saying the mystery level there is like around 24,454?
Yeah, what do you have there?
That was the unmitigated daily level for VWAP that was created from the September 17th. So that level was there, and that's exactly where the price came down.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned. September 17th was a candle that clearly was did you see this hammer, or really kind of almost a doji?
Well, that's the Fed. That's Powell. The power of Powell's voice moves markets.
Yep.
And so it needed to come clear that level and now move up. And it makes this is why I think I'm actually biased towards the downside. I think we get up to maybe we clear the EVWAP for the weekly EVWAP for a while.
Okay.
And then we roll and we go revisit 24,200, 24,150. But I want to see the 2-hour RSI oversold. So I'm only really looking for that when RSI gets to around here.
Yeah, it's funny. I've got my MACD indicator pretty much in the middle on both the 5 and the 15-minute chart. So I'm not even ready to take a side yet.
That's right.
All right, there's the pullback. Let's see where we bounce here. We're going to see a nice bullish bounce right off of VWAP or a rejection.
I think we're going back up to 763. So I would be taking long trades.
We're gonna go for the weekly VWAP, right?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that would be my bet.
Okay, ATR's come down to a little bit more of an acceptable level. I can work around this now. Gold still falling. No word from futures farming yet.
So I'm very much looking forward to, I think next week I'll do it. Tradify is now connected through Project X.
That's right.
And so me as a lowly Canadian, I can go ahead and open up one of those accounts and trade Tradify. Should be pretty and I would not be considering it but for TradersPost. Having a software that allows me to connect my Top Step and Tradify accounts together in order to trade off one signal makes it far more manageable for me. And I just would not consider it otherwise.
So we now have 27 prop firms on the platform, and they either will go through Project X or Tradify. You can make your choice as you choose a prop firm on the choose a broker platform here. So if I select Tradify, I can go through Tradify or Project X. Either one is available to me. Same thing with platforms like Apex, of course, only have Tradify. We still have a Tradify option with Top Step, but that should be removed because that's no longer supported. But you have the Project X option here.
Got it. All right, guys, if you guys are in a trade, love to see what your bias is, what levels you're looking at. One of the things I like about Price Action Live and doing this with everybody is I want to see what you guys are targeting, what you're seeing that I might not be seeing, even if that's not in NASDAQ. So please feel free to point out anything that is notable to you. I love that I'm stuck on this song and I can't remove it from the peaceful Enya ambient music.
Tom, where do you think we end up at the end of the day here?
Oh, I think by the end of the day, we end the day. That's hard.
I think we end up closer to 24.4 again.
You think we give up the ghosts?
I think we do. That's my prediction today. I think we're going to sell off from the top here. We'll either get pretty close to touching the weekly VWAP, or we'll sell short of it. This consolidation here tells me that the sellers are looking to show up. Plus, if you look at the 2-hour chart, that's basically wicking off the top of this regression trend. Mm-hmm. And I think this next candle on the 2-hour chart could tell us a lot more. So we have another 20 minutes left.
I mean,
Ali says he's a buy from 604. Okay, nice. Well, at least you got a little profit there. No action for me at this time. Price is stuck between areas of interest for me. Same, I agree. We're in between that R1, S1, and I'd like to see us reject the R1 first. Aventura asks, with the pattern day trading rule getting removed, what effect will that have on retail trading? As far as I'm aware, it's not getting removed as much as it's being lowered from 25,000 down to potentially 2,000. That's just going to make it a lot easier for people to fund brokerage accounts and not have to wait for 2 days of settlement before getting back into a trade again and be able to trade the same day on anything greater than $2,000 of a balance. So it's just going to make liquidity a little more accessible. It could add a little more noise to the markets as well, but all of that usually means good news for traders.
It's so interesting. Like, you think back 50 years ago, there's less retail participation within the markets because you have incentives now from businesses to for long-term investing. You have 401ks that buy the market. You have retail traders that now have access to easier access to different markets. And now with the PDT rule changing, it could unlock even more. It continues that trend of the policy being get people in markets as much as possible. Did you see? Do you know Luke Roman?
Hang on, gotta concentrate.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Took a trade. Oh, right there. There he goes. Okay. There's successful trade one.
Yay!
Up 508 already. Okay, so I took the bounce off of VWAP there. If you guys were noticing my trade, I had noticed that we bounced right off the VWAP line, wicked off of it. There was enough of a bullish intention there on that 1 minute candle, so I went for it. Nice, that was a good trade.
It's fantastic.
2 in Q on the bigger accounts, 1 in Q on the smaller accounts. So between 250 and 500 in profit across the board. That was a good one. Aventura's automated strategy just took a trade. Good to know. Yeah, we still think it's bullish until we get to the weekly VWAP, and we've got a ways to go on that. So,
Aventura, did it go long or did you go short, Aventura? Love to know.
I hope he went long.
Yeah.
Let's see what he says. So, who was the person you asked me about?
Luke Groman.
Yeah, I know Luke Groman.
He did an interview a few days ago, and he was just like almost resigned to the idea that markets just go up, and there's no.
Oh yeah.
Why are we even pretending otherwise? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, being a long-term bear doesn't really make any sense.
No, never. And honestly, even Bill Ackman took the other side of that. If you watch Bill Ackman's career, oh, good. Aventura said he's long. Bill Ackman used to be primarily just a short seller, and he'd look for opportunities to sell overvalued companies or ones that he thought were going to just go to zero. There's a whole documentary about it too. Him and a whole bunch of different short sellers out there. And he obviously lost his ass when he got in a war with Carl Icahn on Herbalife because Bill Ackman thought Herbalife was going to go to zero and really insisted that it was being poorly managed and that they were a complete fraudulent company. And Carl Icahn basically squeezed them out. And he switched sides, and he hasn't done much short selling since then. And I don't blame him. It's a really tough game to play on the longer time horizons. Now, me shorting NQ for 2.5 minutes, not a big deal. And I'm not anti-America for doing it, all right?
Oh, the protests. I love that.
Because look, the money I make doing this is going to go right back into the economy, guys.
See, that's the correct answer. Mike knows what side his bread is buttered.
Interesting. Look at that. Nice rejection again. Looks like we might post below VWAP. I'm still not convinced that either direction is established yet, but man, that's looking real bearish. Right to EVWAP.
Yeah, if we close below 649, that's where I'm like.
Yeah, pretty much an indecision candle there from the open. And is that going to be the wick that couldn't touch weekly VWAP, Tom? Am I going to prove the point that it happens 20% of the time?
Well, it did touch. That's what I wanted to pull up before. It did touch this area over here. This is my yellow one over here. This is my weekly level that I pay attention to as well, and it did touch exactly there. But there's just something in me that I do think, because this drop that we're getting right now on this candle is the first candle of the 15-minute candle, and I'm super dubious about first candles on 15-minute. I want to see what happens 3 minutes from now, which could totally bounce up to VWAP, EV weekly VWAP.
You're going to kill me on this trade, then, aren't you?
You're in a short.
I went for it. We'll give it a second here. I literally was right there. You can't see it on the 1 minute chart, but it was about $1 away.
Yikes.
So I made 9 points of profit, and it looks like I'm going to take my loss for the day. Bummer. Okay, Now, the beauty of my approach here is that I keep as long as my winners are consistent, then I keep my losses really, really tight for the day. Um, According to my rules, that took me out. That should close me out for the day, and I'll come back Monday and keep going. What has been difficult for me with this strategy, of course, is sticking to that, because I'm going to watch the chart now and want to take another one of these scalps to make my way forward. But I set a rule for this strategy where one loss should take me out for the day, and I'm gonna stick with that because I want to keep my daily loss for the day printed low. The one downside to this is that because of that run up in the trade, my Apex accounts get hit on the max loss limit because they are real-time max loss limit. So if you have prop firms that you're working with and you're considering whether or not they're going to work for you, for this particular approach, these Apex accounts are very difficult for me because of the run up in my profit and then the drawdown from that loss. Ultimately, I end up with less drawdown available to me because of the real-time calculation than the ones that are end of day. So the 3 Tradify accounts you see on the screen here, I'm only going to get hit with $203 of loss, so it's not going to affect my drawdown much, and I'll have plenty of drawdown by the end of the day. I'll probably be pretty close to losing these Apex accounts because of that loss just now.
I see.
Which sucks because it's, I've managed risk pretty well. It's not like I lost a ton of money, but all right, not terrible. I still have a couple thousand in drawdown in the Apex accounts.
So you're not going to set a limit order at the weekly VWAP to short from there?
Probably should, right? See, it's just tough. I'm really trying to stick with my rules.
Yeah. One of my new rules that I've developed because of this price action live is I never pay attention to the first minute of the 15-minute candle. That first candle, anything can happen. It's setting the tone. You don't know what the story is. Often it's a mean reverting, and I just go, nope, that doesn't count.
I think I'll probably adopt that one, Tom. The 15-minute has definitely been useful in many of our sessions here, so I might throw that rule in myself. It just depends. For me, the hard and fast rules around how many trades I take and how much risk I take for the day are the ones that I think have been the most helpful. Anything can happen in the first 30 minutes of the session, and sometimes it can be just a straight sell-off. You may as well participate, right?
Right.
We kind of saw that in yesterday's session where once it started, I just kept going until we finally hit S1. And so I did take these trades after the first 5 minutes or so. So even having window rules doesn't make sense to me because sometimes price action will show up in the first few minutes of the session.
So this is where I'm having difficulty with the negative RR thing, because you're often very good at determining where the price should go, right? Maybe the path dependency is a little bit off, but once the trend starts, it's sort of like, I know you can go long and short in the same account at the same time, but then does that make your bias for or if let's say you thought the price is going to go up and you had this target for this price 100 ticks away, is there a way to be in that trend and then still do negative RR trading within it so that you still are exposed to that trend?
I mean, one could argue that if the market is clearly trending and we're finally out of this choppy environment, that I could still just switch to my trend following strategy. Mm-hmm. And I could still do that here. I mean, it's looking a lot more bullish. We still posted above VWAP and we have room to the weekly, but I just don't like this trend right here. Right. This overall sell-off tells me that sellers are likely to show up here at 700 or at 760 or even at the R1 at 790. So I'm fully anticipating that if there is a trend, it's short-lived before we turn around and head the other direction. So I could start to set up a short trend for the rest of the day.
If we get to weekly VWAP.
Any of those levels, yeah. I'd like to see us get a little bit higher. My gold automated strategy just took a long, so you can see there's an open trade on MGC right now.
Another nail on the coffin for a short on equities.
Exactly, right, yeah. Long on gold would usually mean bad news for equities. at least over longer time frames. Again, I struggle with like the economic, macroeconomic viewpoints on things. If there's a flight to gold, it usually means flight to safety. I think that's generally true for longer time periods, but maybe not intraday. What are your
You're
thoughts?
right. Yeah, definitely not intraday.
Yeah.
It's that's why I miss having the commitment of traders data directly within
Yeah.
TradingView. You can just see, okay, it's commercial positioning, or if it's, I mean, obviously it was end of day or even end of week information, but it's super useful to understand what the trend was.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're not going to get into a trade, I am curious if this is going to get to 761. But I didn't mention it to everyone. I did lose my funded account for Top Step. I have another one in the works, but I can't trade on that because I already made my profit for it for the day. But that was my own mistake. I didn't have a stop loss set properly. I walked away from my computer, and that'll be the last time I ever check on my son when he has a nightmare in the middle of the night. I learned my lesson. I'm putting that in my trade journal, Mike. But all right, let me continue.
Tell your son not to have nightmares anymore. That's the real problem.
Exactly. Jose says he's long at 24,697. Poor setup, but triggered based on system rules. Yeah.
Got it. Well, stick to the system if it's working. We still think there's some bullish intention here. It's just this is an interesting consolidation range right here. You can see these candles are telling us that we're a little sideways at the moment. Yeah, pretty much right in the middle, even if I measure this on the regression trend. So we need to really kind of break this high candle at 715 to see a confirmation of this trend.
Okay, I'm about to ask you a very esoteric question, very fruit question. When you see the ebb and flow of the prices on the chart, and you're like reading the chart, looking back in history, and you're scanning forward, do you breathe? Do you breathe in when the price moves up and breathe out when the price goes down in order to feel what it's like for the price?
Whoa, that's an esoteric question. No, Tom, I hold my breath. If I'm in a trade, I'm like, whoa. Please play out. I don't know if I've ever paid attention to my breathing, and you're going to make me self-conscious about it now. Thanks a lot for that.
Well, I do it often for when I'm not in a trade. If I'm just looking at price history, in order to feel what it's like at the time, I breathe in and out according to how the chart moves.
Interesting. No, I've never thought about doing that before.
Well, I once saw a TED Talk.
Instinctively, though.
Well, just to make me not seem crazy, I did see a TED Talk, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever it was, of a person who had a vibrating pack on their back that would vibrate with the buys and sells on the stock market. And he wore it for like 3 months straight. And then he says that he was able to sort of like get a second sense and anticipate what the price would do on the chart, because he was just constantly getting that feedback, and his brain just created a model for that. Now I don't have a pack connected to that. Maybe I should make one. But I breathe in order to get a sense of what it feels like. But
that's really interesting. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how that really translates to better trading, but I suppose if you start to get a feel throughout the day of how the market moves, that's very similar to the way we look at charts all day long. I mean, there are patterns to the session that we start to adapt to. We know where things are going to show up. We're watching ATR. We get a sense of how price action is telling the story. So I think something similar could show up with a device like that. It's kind of interesting.
Yes. Excellent. Well, do you want to leave it here for the day? Do you want to give it a few minutes for farm?
Let's see. Yeah, John has not responded here. So let's try for next week with futures farming. We'll actually lock it in, get a scheduled date in place and everything. So I'll follow up with him, and we'll get something ironed out there. As far as the trading here goes, this is obviously a choppy consolidation range. So there's nothing here for me to do until the market can decide where it wants to go. If I do take one more trade, it'll violate my rules, but I do like it. It looks really interesting here at the weekly VWAP if we can get that high. So I may take one more scalp trade and try to call it a day after that. We'll see.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll look forward to the Slack message when it does hit VWAP, and then weekly VWAP turns from there. You're like, hey, Tom,
6
you're
more
totally
after
right.
that, and I hit max profit for the day. Like, whoops, broke my rules.
Excellent. And don't worry, Adventurer. Don't lament for me. I will learn from that lesson. I will not make it again more than 5 times. That's my limit. I'm not going to make the mistake of walking away from a chart more than 5 times.
Then we got to mark these on the wall or something. Got to keep track of it.
All right, so we'll be back next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for more trading. But the trading doesn't have to stop there. The fun doesn't have to stop there. We'll be here for after hours later on today at 4 p.m. for macro data news. We're always the Discord is always open if you want to be part of the community. People are always chatting there, sharing ideas, sharing scripts, sharing war stories. Very, very interesting. And if anyone's watching and you are interested in perhaps joining us on an episode of Price Action Live, let us know. Put it in the comments. Message us in the dashboard. We are certainly interested. We'll make sure you have a good mic, good camera, good enough, and let's get you online. But until then, we'll wish you guys a happy trading.
Cheers, everyone.